Are we, I know that you talked about future expansion. Are we going to expand the red light?
Yes, we would. We would like to, sir.
And do you have any areas that you're looking at right now, or?
Not specifically, but we'll be doing that in concert with our Street and Transportation Department, looking at crash data for the previous year.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I have, I have a question.
Councilmember Pastor?
Current contract is with,
Red Flex Traffic
oh,
System.
so it is with Redflex?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about Red Flex's issues in Chicago and how they've addressed those?
Absolutely. We were notified by them almost immediately last year through both phone calls as well as documentation from their CEO about a possible bribery scandal with the city officials from the city of Chicago. They were very forthright. They did a full investigation. They kept us in the loop, and they got rid of most of their executive staff over it. I can't give you exact numbers of how many employees lost their jobs. And now currently there's some litigation going on back in Chicago. What we are very comfortable with is that nothing like that ever happened here. We have never had any type of impropriety on the part of any member of the Red Flex Traffic Systems Company.
Just to add to that, Councilman, I'll turn over to James from a business perspective. But I would add also that, like the Lieutenant said, they were very transparent in getting that information to us immediately. I think the other piece of this is that the contract itself, it has an opportunity for a 3-year, but it's at 1-year increments. So is that correct, James?
Yes, sir.
So it gives us an opportunity to constantly reevaluate their work as we move forward. James?
Chairman Nowakowski, members of the subcommittee. The incidents is occurring with the city of Chicago. We're taken very seriously by the city, by the finance department, by the police department. As it pertained to our current contract, we actually partnered with the city auditor who reviewed the transactions of our current contract, as well as all city staff that were associated with the contract, both from the finance department, the police department, municipal courts, and streets, and found no irregularities and found that the contract was being complied with. Because of our concern and wanting to make sure that we properly vetted all the competitors or all the respondents to the solicitation, we purposefully increased the amount of scrutiny that we typically do in a solicitation. So we asked for more references. We asked for not only references, but a list of all their contracts that expired over the last 5 years so that we could pick who we were going to contact and not just rely on the references that they provided to us. We also included an offer security as well as a performance security in the event that the contract is needed to end unexpectedly. We also included minimum qualifications with regard to past performance. So any offers who were terminated for default in the last 5 years were precluded from consideration. Any offers that were debarred from participating in the procurements of any other government across the country were also precluded from consideration. Based on these minimum qualifications and past performance information, the offers that we received were considered to be acceptable.
When you say our packet says that we precluded any offers who'd been terminated for cause by any government, so Chicago terminated their contract, but not for cause, is that?
Our understanding is that the contract was allowed to expire. Now, based on the information in the response from Redflex, the offer did not participate or was not allowed to participate in the next solicitation, as they were still looking into the allegations at that time. But from the information that we've been able to review, none of the contracts that they had been participating in were terminated for default or breach of contract. Rather, they were just terminated for a change in policy by that government or expired or what have you.
I thought they terminated early because there were issues like Redflex stock suspended trading, but you think it just...
Based on the information that we found, there were no terminations. Rather, the contracts expired. They met their full length, as ours will expire at the end of this month. Their contracts expired. That's the information that we've been able to receive.
Can you go back to, I think it's slide 8 or 7? Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah, no problem. This one, ma'am?
It said propose the best pricing, and it says 9% lower than the current contract. Can you articulate on that?
Yes, the price that's charged is based on a per adjudicated citation. So the per adjudicated citation, as the lieutenant mentioned, currently is $34.25.
25 cents.
The price offered by Redflex is $31 even.
Any other comments? Councilmember Williams?
Redflex was in my district, located the office in the district, so I have visited. And I know when this occurred, they immediately called my office and notified me what was going on. They highly prize the city of Phoenix. They tout us as a success story. And although they've had a terrific scandal, they really have some good people there, and I think a great operation. I would suspect the price, we're taking advantage of them trying to overcome what has happened internally. So it's to our benefit, but I am very pleased with what's happened, and I think this program really saves lives. So thank
We've,
you.
Councilman, just to add, just to give you a perspective of how closely we look not only at Redflex issues in Chicago, but let's look at it from a strategic standpoint. One of the things they offered us was to have cameras mounted on school buses. If anybody tried to go around, the camera would take a picture. We said no, because we didn't want that school bus to be a target of someone who wants to pull that bus over and say, hey, I noticed you took a picture. We just felt that was unsafe. So from a strategy standpoint, and I think and I believe from a business standpoint, and from the future of the program, these are things that we've looked at very strongly as well.
Chief, one of the questions I have is it 9% lower because the hardware's there already and there's not that fee that they would have to, or would it be brand new cameras and?
Do you think is it revenue, James, brought in that maybe they decided to go lower because of that issue?
Chairman Nowakowski, members of the subcommittee, that could be the case, but we would have to step back and look at the overall size of the program. We're talking about 12 installed units. When we've looked at other similar programs across the country, they were much more substantial. So the larger the infrastructure investment, the more it would seem to suggest that there would be a higher cost to deinstall these devices and install new devices. So that could be the case, but we have a relatively small program when we look at other programs across the country, at least based on the references that we received. These were much larger programs.
And I'm under the opinion it doesn't have to be the cheapest or the one that generates most revenue, but it should be the best fit for the city of Phoenix.
Absolutely.
And especially when we talk about integrity and looking at our police force, the integrity that you all have. So I just have some questions on just the whole Chicago thing that
Right.
I was under the impression that they were pulled from Chicago, and just listening to what you're saying right now, I'd like to learn more about the person that came in second, and what company was that?
Chairman, the other offer, there were two offers received.
Right.
Their name was GATSO, G-A-T-S-O, and they evaluated reasonably. Their prices were reasonable as well, so the scoring overall was relatively close. There were some differences with regard to the quality of certain aspects of their offer, were a little bit more narrow, not as complete and as thorough as Redflex, but overall it was a competitive offer.
And are they in other major cities, or would the city of Phoenix be one of their major cities?
They do have other customers across the country. Off the top of my head, I don't recall which ones they are at this point, but I can get that information to you, Councilman.
And are we in a rush to approve this this contract, or can we actually hold off and get more information on the other company and answer some of those questions that Councilmember Gallegos asked?
Chairman, given the timing of the current contract, if you wanted more information and we needed more time to provide that to you, We are in a position to extend the current contract for an interim period of time to provide coverage to the rest of the summer so that we could make a decision whether or not to start the new contract at a later date.
I'd like to sit down and talk to Councilmember Williams, knowing that they've been in her district and for years, and that they've been giving back to the community and all that. So I'd like to have that information from her also. And I'm not sure if we could continue this or if somebody has a motion to approve it. I'll
We
entertain a
can,
motion.
okay, so what I understand, if we make we make a motion to continue it, the contract will be extended or given a 3-month contract until we meet again.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. My question, and I know it's a personal question, I think there's a red flex in District 4 on 15th Avenue and Missouri, right in front of the school.
A camera?
A camera. It's a,
Have they taken your picture?
no, they haven't. No, they haven't.
A mobile speed van or in the
No, it's an
intersection itself?
actual, in the, so I think it's a red flex then.
Yeah, any photo enforcement in the city of Phoenix would be.
Okay, it's
red
right by
flags.
Spectrum Mall.
Mhm.
So, okay. No, they had someone else in the family, not me. That's why I know about it. I was like, I think that's it. So
Well-
you wanna make a motion?
Well, I'm very comfortable with moving ahead with Red Flex because I think we've had a good experience with them. But if you really want to hold this until, I guess, probably your next meeting would be September,
Correct.
and you could extend that, I mean, I'm willing to make that I'll make the motion to continue to our meeting in September.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to continue and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. Thank you so much. And Chief, if we can have maybe some private meetings with each of the board members here, with my colleagues, that we can answer those questions that they have. That'd be great. Thank
Be
you.
happy to get back.
All right, you're still up, Chief. Item number 19, policing, police programs in
Right.
schools.
These are two programs that basically, we're going to update you on our GREAT program. That's the Gang Resistance Education and Training Program. And what's called the CEAS Wake Up Community Effort to Abate Street Crimes. And Lieutenant Chris Tucker is going to guide us through on these issues.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Council. We're happy to be here this morning to talk about school programs. The programs we're going to be discussing are the GREAT program and the Wake Up program. I'd like to introduce two of my colleagues that are with me here this morning. Sergeant Kevin Bryce is the GREAT coordinator, and Officer Robin Ontiveros is our Wake Up coordinator for our department. So we'd like to do a quick presentation just to provide an overview of both of the programs, and then we can answer any questions you may have about any of these programs. Let's start with Wake Up. Wake Up program educates youth in the community about the consequences of youth violence and encourages positive solutions. The Wake Up program has been continually supported by Blockwatch grants since 1996. We currently have 27 schools that have been funded in the amount of $270,000 for the 2014-2015 school year. Historically speaking, we have had up to 3 full-time coordinators for Wake Up. Those positions are funded by the city. We currently have 1 coordinator running that position. The Wake Up coordinator ensures sustainability of the program and monitors program efficiency. Wake Up services approximately 500 students yearly, and we have had over 10,000 students that have benefited from this program since its inception. GREAT Gang Resistance Education and Training Program is evidence-based gang and violence prevention program. It is a school-based law enforcement officer instructed curriculum. It's offered to elementary and middle school students. We have 1 officer currently funded by the city that teaches GREAT for the entire city. This officer teaches elementary and middle schools, instructs approximately 1,000 students every semester. They are also responsible for a summer program. Historically, we have had up to 6 full-time officers that have instructed GREAT. We currently have 1 officer that fulfills that. GREAT was developed by our Phoenix Police Department in collaboration with the ATF in 1991. Our police department also hosts the Southwest Regional Training Center, which encompasses 11 states, staffed by a sergeant, Sergeant Bryce, who's with us, as well as an officer. Last fall, our department received a $325,000 grant from the Department of Justice. This grant pays for 50% of our personnel costs for our sergeant and 25% of the costs for the officer. The positions dedicate similar percentages of duty time to fulfill the objectives of the grant, and then the remaining funds are allocated for travel and supplies that are associated with the training center. And that's the overview. Any questions you may have, we can certainly answer, and we have the topic experts with us today.
Alrighty, do we have any questions for my colleagues? Councilmember Williams?
Thank you. I know these programs have been around for a very long time, and you've been the leader in the nation on these. I guess my question is, what data do you have to show that it's actually effective and effective long-term, that you are keeping people out of gangs and with a great program? And I mean, do you track individuals? Do you see if they get involved? And same thing with the Wake Up program. How do you prove it?
Thank you. The University of Missouri did a 5-year longitudinal study that was funded by the Department of Justice. And they tracked kids for 5 years after they went through the grade class. This is our second 5-year longitudinal study. This one that they just completed in 2012 showed that the program was actually effective in stopping kids from joining gangs, a better attitude towards police officers as well. So it's actually the only school-based type educational project out there that is evidence-based. And that's really all the evidence that we have that the program works, but it's the most significant longitudinal study that's ever been conducted so far with that.
And they did that in Phoenix?
No, Phoenix was not one of those programs. They did 5 pilot cities, and Phoenix wasn't one of those cities. But if you're asking if we have something here locally, if we can prove this, if the program is working, no, we don't. We realized a while ago that it was just too expensive and too hard to try to track these kids, giving them pre-test and post-test afterwards. It just got too time-consuming for us to do that. What we have is just testimonials at the end of the semester by the kids about how the grade has changed their lives. When we do get stories like that, we publish them on newsletters and that type of thing.
Well, I think I'm the one that asked about the programs and how many officers. Obviously, you have reduced the staffing. I'm trying to find bodies to put on patrol.
Absolutely.
And it's federally funded, so I guess I have to put these aside and look for some new options. Thank you.
Councilmember, I can tell you that, look, there's a number of programs in our department that I would love to see to continue to grow in the future of our organization. But you know, right now there is a needs policing of the Phoenix Police Department that I think all of you are well aware that the things we have to do. I will tell you that from a standpoint of having a program that you can't measure, I think we need to do better on that. I'll be the first to tell you that in relation to this program, I think we do have to have some type of measures in there that will give us a better idea whether this program is something to invest in. I will tell you that we've had a number of partnerships with ASU and also Grand Canyon University, and I'm very open to allow them an opportunity to come in here and look at this program as well. And maybe that's something we can look at as we move forward. It's an option for us. We'll be happy to follow that up for you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pastor?
So, in my past life, or still current, I was a teacher, and I was a great teacher. And actually, personal story, if it hadn't been for the 6th graders all did the program, and one of their rewards was to go to a minor league baseball team at that time. So if it hadn't been for that program, I don't think I would have met my husband. and he happened to be coaching at that time. So
Well, there you go.
there's great value in that, Zelda.
Personal
But-
personal testimonials
Yeah.
are always a great thing too.
Great
However,
job.
the neighborhood that I was teaching in did have high crime rate, high gang violence. And I was one of those dedicated teachers to know that as a teacher, the only way I could change a community is by working with the youth. And I could tell you, we may not have the data, but the information that they received and the impact that they had with relationships with the officers and their teachers did make an impact on the community. Did it completely change their lives? I don't know. That's data that we'll never know until they come back and say, "Hey, this happened to me." But I think there's probably a way we could look at metrics or look at how many kids participated, maybe more of how many went to the next level, grade level, didn't drop out, and kind of look at it that way of all these different programs, social programs really, that impact them to keep them going. So I don't know if that's another way, but so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Wanted to offer a thank you to all our community partners who help with this program, Maryville Revitalization, South Mountain Clean and Beautiful, and others. It's great that we're engaging the community as well.
You know, I have a couple comments. I think it's a great program, both programs. I think it's really needed. We were looking at our drowning prevention programs that we had in the city of Phoenix, and we gathered the aquatics and we gathered the firefighters. But at the same time, we started looking at other departments within the city of Phoenix, the planning and zoning, where they enforce the fencing that goes around the pools. So we included them. We included about 6 or 7 different departments within the city of Phoenix that has to do with either swimming pools, drownings, or protection or safety. And we created a whole committee. And all of a sudden now we have the county involved, we have the state involved, we have other nonprofits involved. What I would like to see is how do we reach out? How do we reach out to other departments within the city of Phoenix to kind of use each other's resources? I mean, we have an after-school program, PAC, we have rec centers, we have all kinds of resources. And sometimes what happens within the city is that we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're not coordinating the efforts. So maybe there might be some way somehow that we can help to coordinate the different efforts of the different departments. Right offhand, the Parks and Rec, I mean, they have so many great programs out there that can come hand in hand, and we can really start touching the masses. I mean, even what Sergeant Thompson's doing is using peers to communicate with peers. I know that you all think outside the box and use technology and all that. I think one of the concerns is that the GREAT program and the Wake Up program has been around for years, and are we using the same formula and the same curriculum, and have we updated it? And I think that was one of the concerns that Council Member Williams had, that she wanted to make sure that times have changed, you know, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, now in the 2000s, right? And I mean, with technology and with all the stuff that kids are using nowadays, I mean, it's incredible that when I was growing up, I didn't have those toys or tools, right? So are we keeping up with the trends that are out there? And I think that's one of the concerns that we had was, we know that we're limited in staff and resources, but how can we reach out to other entities within the city of Phoenix and maybe the county and the state? And maybe there's other grants out there that we can actually apply for to just to blow this great program up to something greater. And maybe there'll be other husbands and wives that are found through this program. And so with that, just encourage you, if there's anything that we can do, I'm pretty sure the 4 of us up here will help you to try to organize that if there's something we can help out with.
Well, Councilman Alkowski, one of the things that I will add to it is that, and I was checking with Lieutenant Tucker here, he tells me that our SROs this summer are doing some of this training as well. So the issue of cross-training our SROs to know this program stronger and be part of it is certainly something that's an option that's also available to us.
And then, Chief, the other thing too is young people nowadays. We've been meeting with a lot of young people, and there's nothing for them to do. I mean, they can't. You can only go to the movies so many times, and the malls are kicking them out after hanging out for a couple hours there. There's no more cruising. The nightclubs are all 21 and over. So if you happen to be 16 to 21, you're in that gap where there's nothing to do, where a boy can meet a girl or a girl can meet a boy in a safe environment. So maybe there's something that we can create with this grade or wake up program for the summertime, maybe working with some local businesses or even with some of our parks and rec facilities to create a safe environment for teenagers just to hang out and basically stay out of trouble and not to have those backyard parties where they're pressured by
Right.
drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. So I'd be more than happy, and I'm pretty sure my colleagues, to create something for the summertime to keep kids busy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, with that, Chief, I guess you're done, huh?
I'll be
This was
here.
the Garcia show. All right, now we're going to, a fun topic, ethics reform. All right. Mr. Paul Blue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, as I continue to get settled into Phoenix, this is an item that is going to pass into my portfolio moving forward. We are here this morning to essentially get some direction. This item is placed within this particular subcommittee. We're providing a report to you today that's got a series of documents in it. There is a summary of the Ethics Task Force, which has met previously. There was some City Council policy direction that was given in June of 2013. There was also a proposed ethics ordinance, which has been heard but not adopted by the City Council back in April of this year. And there was an ethics proposal that has been circulated by the mayor's office on April the 24th. So the report that you have outlines in broad brush strokes the differences between those items. The staff is here to answer any particular questions that you have, but we are suggesting a path for you. We think that there's perhaps enough meat on this particular topic that you may want to have a dedicated meeting just to deal with ethics and to deal with the different versions that are in front of you and perhaps settle on a consensus of a draft that could then be forwarded to full council for their consideration, which would seem to be a way to at some point bring some closure to this item. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, the staff is available to answer any questions that you have.
I have a couple questions. First of all, do we really have an ethics problem in the city of Phoenix? Has there been, how many investigations within the last 5 years have we had?
Chairman Nowakowski, I'm not aware of any ethics investigations related to elected officials. So you have to be, with any ethics policy, currently the city has an ethics policy. It's in chapter 2-52 of the city code. And that applies to council members and as well as employees, board members. So I am not, to answer your question specifically related to elected officials, I'm not aware of any. Related to personnel, you would I would defer to the HR department because that's subject to the city manager's disciplinary process, and I think they would probably have the numbers on those.
Now, we formed was it a blue ribbon or a task force of individuals to come in and look at our ethics policy and procedures?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Can you give us a little bit background on that? What actually was it, and what was their duties?
I'll give maybe the big picture, and then I
Right.
think Dan, who worked most closely with them, can give more fine-grained detail as you desire. There was a task force comprised, I believe, of about 12 people, members from the community appointed by the mayor and the city council, and they were tasked with reviewing best practices, comparing that against what the city currently does, and making recommendations about potential practices that the city of Phoenix could try to adopt as it pertains to
elected officials, employees, board members, and volunteers.
Thank you. And then who was actually on that committee?
If you can give me a moment, Mr. Chair, I can read you the names. The chair of the task force was former County Attorney Rick Romley, and then I can read the names if you like. They're in.
Right, correct.
Okay. Tim Burke from Fenimore Craig, Ernie Calderon, who is with the Board of Regents, and the Mike DeMuro, who's a citizen, Judge Elizabeth Finn, who's the presiding judge in Glendale, David Gass, who is a Superior Court judge for Maricopa County, Wayne George, who is a citizen, Brandon Goad, who is a citizen, Bill Harden, who is an attorney with Osborne Maladon, Melissa Ho, who was an attorney with Posnelli Shugart, and then Cecile Patterson, who was a retired judge from the Arizona State Court of Appeals.
And I just want to let the public know that these individuals are very prestigious individuals, very knowledgeable on this issue, and they worked, it was about a year or so?
They started their work in the fall of 2012, summer fall of 2012, and then concluded their work with a final report in January of 2013.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Pastor.
So for me, being a new person sitting here and picking this up, what Milton suggested would help me, and I'm sure many of us, greatly in really digging into the piece, the ethics piece, and really seeing the meat of it and deciding what's the pushback, or determining is it needed or it's not needed, or what is that document for documentation will look like, and how would we report it. So I like the fact that that's being recommended, and for us to work closely together in looking at this document. That was my intent when I asked for it to be pulled and brought back here. So.
Perfect. Any other comments or recommendations? Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Chair, I looking through this and having been involved, I think there are probably maybe 3 or 4 different sections that we have questions about. The one I think probably, if we would take them by the sections, if we would identify those, let staff know, and we could probably work on it easier that way. Because there's part of this I will never agree to. We all know that. But there's some, I think, that are simplified. I think we need to update some of it immediately, and maybe even come up with some new ideas. I remember one of the big things was social media and our little devices, and how not only council uses them, but employees. Because truthfully, I believe a lot of this applies to all of us equally. And I am a strong supporter of having an ethics policy. I believe in it. I think we should be held, everybody in this organization, to a high standard. But it should be a reasonable standard. It should still allow for us to do city business and be able to conduct ourselves in a very professional and ethical manner. And I think it needs to recognize that. And I think some of this went so far that it impedes us from that type of progress. So that would be my suggestion. Identify 2 or 3 areas, break it up, and tackle it maybe one at a time.
So we're hearing 2 different things. We're hearing that we should have one subcommittee meeting just dedicated on ethics policy and just go through it all. And then I'm hearing Councilmember Williams saying that maybe what we should do is break it up into 3 sections and maybe deal with section by section, and instead of just trying to tackle it all at one time.
Actually, Councilwoman Williams, that's exactly what I would like to do, only
Perfect.
because we'll get overwhelmed
Correct.
and we'll get, at least I will, after an hour, hour and a half, we'll be like, I'm done with this. So,
It's
I
almost
think
as
that's
bad as
best.
pension.
yes, yes. So, yeah, I think we're all on the same page.
Perfect. Any other comments? Well, I just want to make it very clear to everyone that this isn't going to become a political football in this subcommittee. One of the things that I believe would happen at the very beginning, my colleagues aren't probably privileged to it, but this was just a political football that was being tossed back and forth. And I don't want that to happen in this subcommittee. This is going to be a policy that we're going to look through, and we're going to make sure that it's best for all of our elected officials and also for employees. And we're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be open. If people have concerns, they're going to be invited to come to the meeting to address those different issues. So instead of just throwing it all in one meeting, I agree with my colleagues that we should spread it out. So if somebody has a concern on a certain aspect of the policy, then they can actually just come to that one meeting and address that issue. But once again, we're gonna stay focused on the facts and on the data, and we're not gonna get into this political stuff. So with that, I'll welcome a motion to, or do we even have to have a motion to break it up in pieces, or can we just make that recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have to have a motion. We'll do it any way you want it to. So if you have specific sections that you want us to lead with, we'll take that direction and come back. The other thing, we simply suggested a council meeting dedicated solely to this. If it's your feeling that it could be done within the context of another meeting, just a lot more time to it and fewer items on the agenda, otherwise we'll do that. We'll do whatever your pleasure is.
Is there a certain item or issue that we should tackle first, or should we allow our staff to kind of choose that?
I think I'm going to leave it to the experts,
Right.
and since you've been dealing with it, and determine or how we'll go. My question to the chair is dates, because just being notified to make sure I'm not traveling or I'm here to be able to participate. So I'm not sure, when are we planning on getting this done?
I think we'll just do our September, October, November, and hopefully by the holiday we'll be done with it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
I'd rather get this off my plate, because in October we're going to start dealing with a lot of other dynamics. So however we move it, but I'd rather get it off my plate and start dealing with some other pieces.
How many pieces do you think, Paul, we can break this into?
I think you will find that the sections probably will revolve in three broad areas. The first would be gifts and the definition of gifts and the treatment of gifts. I think the second area would deal with the areas of who adjudicates opinions, or what's the group that's going to evaluate whether a standard has not been met or not, which would be the Ethics Commission or some other construct. And then the third area, I think, would be related to penalties that are then applied if in the event that there is some conclusion of a problem. And it could be that the area of gifts may take longer and the others could be collapsed together shorter. I'm a little less certain about that for you, but I think gifts certainly is one area. The commission and penalties strike me as the three that are logically here. I don't know if those are by time, but certainly by category.
And when's our next subcommittee meeting?
You were scheduled to come back in September? September the 10th?
So we would have to call special meetings if we wanted to meet that October deadline. If my colleagues are open to that.
In September, right?
Well, we would have September, and we'd probably have to have 2 extra.
You guys open?
And there's some issues like the issue of zoning hearing officers and whether they should be city employees. I mean, I could address that in the Housing, Neighborhoods, and Development Committee if that would.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Gallego, in fact, I think we could, when we first come, we could also inform you all of the things that have already been accomplished. Because as an example, that would be one that's already done. Staff took, because it was something that was very much within our control and didn't require additional work, we actually went forward and followed through on the council's request and have implemented that already.
Could you explain what item? I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, this relates to, we previously had volunteers with zoning expertise who were zoning hearing officers in places where we previously had either had employees or contractors. And so I think we are now utilizing contractors to act where we can deal with potential conflicts through the contract.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I think one of the ways, pardon me, we should start are those that definitely impact employee and council. Gifts is part of it, but I think there's a little bit more to it, and I want to make sure that there's a certain level we all should be under. I think it's the investigation part, the panel, et cetera, that really becomes controversial. But I think dinners, gifts, and what defined as a gift is a logical place to start.
Maybe what we can do there is start off in our September meeting on the gifts, and then from there we can maybe decide what we should do, or
Yeah.
how we should proceed with the other two.
Okay.
We'll
Yes,
know
sir.
our schedule then
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Can you provide, I know I'm stepping, can you provide us our little homework for that September meeting and be able to get it to us in a timely manner so that then we could have our questions ready to go, and maybe we just start asking questions or changing language?
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember, we can certainly do that. It really, we have to get to a point where we have a consensus on where the threshold is.
Right.
So is it $50? Is it $100? Is it $200? And clarity around what is supposed to happen if you accept it. You know, what is the reporting requirement?
Right.
So, not necessarily heavy lifting, but we do need to have a meeting of the minds on the standard for the government, particularly for the employees, so they know what's expected of them.
Right.
And we can then push it from there.
If I can make a suggestion, before our next meeting, you meet with each of my colleagues and you go over what you're going to be presenting, so if they have any questions, they can actually be prepared for that meeting. The other thing too is I like to see the standards at the state level and other surrounding cities, so we have something to compare our ethics when it comes to gifts, so that we're not really experts in it. So I like to see what other cities and what the state's doing it when it comes to gifts also. If that briefing, you can actually present that to us.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am?
Following up on Councilwoman Pastor, I still have the handbook that you might want to give them, because it really give an explanation, and I don't know if they received it or not, but I think it would be most helpful.
Any other questions or recommendations? With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming out and hearing us. Thank you. We'll see you in September.
Are we done?
And now we have item number
I think so.
21.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, during the, I guess, the budget time period, although it was not a part of the budget itself, there had been a suggestion raised by a union within the police department. An idea was surfaced regarding the allowance of officers to do physical exercise while on duty. And while that is an operational item and really not one appropriate to debate out here, we did want to put some context to how it should be dealt with and how it's going to be dealt with. That item will be the subject of a labor management discussion where those that are advocating for it will be able to outline the reasons that they think it's appropriate and the logistics of how it could work. The leadership of the police department, Chief Garcia, will have the opportunity to outline any particular issues that they have with it or questions they have about how it could be applied. And then upon going through a process, we'll be able to figure out where we're going to land. I think aside from the substance of the topic itself, it's also important that there be a process whereby people can be heard when they have ideas and suggestions for operational changes. The chief and I have discussed this. The chief is on board with and supportive of having an environment where this item can be debated out, if you will, and then we would reach a conclusion about it.
Any questions or?
I have a comment.
Comment.
So, thank you for, because I made the request, so thank you for following up and giving us the information. And it's, for me, it's nice to know that everybody was being heard and that it is now being looked at
Yes, ma'am.
for future.
Yes, ma'am. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
That's it. Anything else? Any cards on the issue? Alrighty, then we'll go to future agenda items.
One. I would like to add an item. I would like to have, hopefully, before we go on break, the chief give us a schedule of recruitment times and when the academy starts. And I am hoping to see that you are recruiting in September and you are hiring before the end of the year and you have the academy up and running before January 1st. And not only for the 15, but I want you to proceed to the next 25. And we need to find a way to fund it.
Absolutely. Any
Mr.
other-
Chairman, Councilmember Williams, are you saying you want this item on the September agenda?
No, I would like to have the information prior to that.
Oh, okay.
It could be recapped in September, but I think I would like, by then it's too late. We want to know now.
Yes, ma'am.
Could I get an update on when we think we might see sex offender clustering?
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Gallego, we have had a meeting as recently as this week on that topic, and so there is a document and report that's being drafted for you that will show what options there might be for legislative action. Also, making sure you're aware of any legal implications associated with it. We had a meeting yesterday, about 14 of us, and so there are different sections of the report that are being addressed by both police and law, the manager's office. So I'll have, I can give you a more specific answer within a couple of weeks, but we are trying to pull together a report for you to have and to look at.
Because it does seem like some of the solutions may involve going to the state legislature, and fall is actually coming up sooner than you'd think for, and if we do want to have that well outlined before the session.
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Gallego, that's correct, particularly if you want to ask for reconsideration of state legislation. That is right.
Wonderful. Well, I hope we can perhaps add it to our very busy September, but as long as the public knows we are taking this very seriously, because we do hear about it a lot, and moving forward.
Any other issues or future agenda items?
Regarding the sex offender clustering,
Mhm.
can we look that up online with this new statistics program? Do we know? Or we could ask?
You mean where they're residing?
Yeah. Can we
I don't-
see the clusters?
I don't think it's on the RAID program, but I do believe there's a site that allows you to do that. Ours is specific to criminal offenses that have occurred.
Okay.
So the answer to that is no, but there is a site that allows you to do that. We'll make sure.
But is there also a possibility of not jumping from site to site to build one system so then we could just punch in information and look? Is it possible to expand it, I guess?
Yeah, if you look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other future agenda items? I have a couple. Our fellow colleague, Peggy Neely came in and asked about the calls per service by precinct. If we can have a report or an update on that, or maybe even a monthly report sent to our offices, that'd be great. The other thing is that I like to really have an ongoing, until the Super Bowl, about the safety of what our plans are, making sure that people are safe in their city. So if we can have an ongoing agenda item, just to give us an update on what we're doing on the safety of during the Super Bowl and all the downtown events during that time.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm going from memory now, but which is sometimes a mistake. But my recollection is this item is actually slated to be on a council agenda in September to deal with Super Bowl and what all is going on. But we certainly, in an ongoing way, can report
Right.
to your subcommittees as well.
Yeah, if it can be information, if we need to talk about it, we can pull it out, but
Yes, sir.
at least an information item for us. The other thing too is that I like to create some type of a MOR, or what we call managed objections and results, by the 3 different departments that we're over when it comes to public safety, where it's police, fire, and the municipal court system. So basically, having a spreadsheet and looking at what was budgeted to that department, where they're at that month, and if they're over or under, and if we have any questions at that time, we can actually ask those questions when it comes to spending more than what they were budgeted or not. Like, so I think it's really important that we keep people accountable to the budgets that they have. So when it comes around budget time, we're not in the situation that we find ourselves in now. It was just surprising that we were almost $40 million in the hole when we were being told that we were in the black. So I just want to make sure that we're good stewards with the tax dollars that we're supposed to be overseeing and the departments that we're overseeing. So maybe we can sit down this summer and come up with some type of a process that informs us on the budgets of those different departments that we oversee in this subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be glad to sit down with you and work out some process.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other future items?
I have,
Councilmember Williams?
I think we've briefly discussed, and I know some of the commanders are working with the chief's office on the marijuana clubs that are operating. And I would like to see if there's not a way we could draft some legislation that has some teeth in it that helps regulate those. They're flourishing so much that the actual dispensaries are really complaining because you can go and get the product much easier at one of those for a lot less, and it's virtually unregulated. You can befriend somebody by making a donation and hand them a bag or product. So I know it's a great concern in Cactus Park precinct. So I know it can't be the only one. I hear it's another. So please have us review that, work with legal, and see if there's something we could do to legislative change that, or give us more teeth to handle the product. Thank you.
Any future items? Just one other thing is for September, if we can bring back someone from PLE to actually explain to us their ballot measure, so we can ask questions if it's on the ballot or not at that time. And with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.